Hello, and welcome into the first episode, and maybe the last, I don't know, we're going to find out, of Rabbit Hunting. I'm Andrew Laird. I had this idea of looking at my lineups every Sorare game week. There are a lot of people who do kind of like game week reviews, or excuse me, previews, where they go through their lineups, what they're going to play. And I don't do that stuff mostly because I make my lineups so late in the week or late at night that it's just not worth streaming it also. I also don't review my lineups other than just seeing that I don't win that many rewards, which isn't all that fun either for content. But there are great people who do stuff every week that go through their lineup processes. Nellis is one of them. Quinny does them. And Harry Trades, who also does them, did a great deadline show today. So check all that stuff out. But that's not why we're here. Speaking of who is here, thank you everyone who has joined. I don't do a lot of solo shows. In fact, I've done one previously and I hated it. I just kind of like talking to other people, and I like really envy people who have the ability to talk to like a camera and a chat for as long as they do. Shout out Quinny, who's here. So yeah, like kind of inspired by Quinny and Nellis and Mike Zakarian over at Team Hold, who does his NBA show every day by himself. I figured I want to try this out. And what better way to do it than to kind of focus on really the most painful parts of Sorare and hope to make them not as painful. So the idea that I had here was essentially, or it basically came up after I was looking at my gallery, and I've been in a bit of a cold streak when it comes to Sorare recently. And I sit here and I'm just like, I feel like I have better cards than what my rewards are producing. And that kind of comes back to lineup building and whether I'm entering the right lineups and the right contests. And I kind of sat down and it was like, maybe I just don't have cards good enough to like win. And I realized that like winning first place is unlikely for a lot of people. It's basically unlikely for me, but but you like every lineup you build, you're just like, oh, mate, this can win first place. And then like the deadline comes and then you look at your lineups and you're like, why did I feel that way? What about these lineups that I put together did I think I could win? So I basically went back last game week or to my last game week results, 343, and was like, if I ended up putting my best cards together, would I have won anything good? And the good news, I guess, is that the answer is yes. The bad news is that I wasn't remotely close to building the lineups that would have allowed me to like win these things. And so I think part of what this show is, whether it's goes beyond today, we'll see, is maybe finding a flaw in my lineup building process, or just realizing that sometimes just wonky things happen and not to read too much into those. We all love to look at like a 1 week sample and like decide like whatever the conclusion was from that game week is the truth. And that's what we should be doing. And so that's almost exactly what I'm going to do right now, even though I long pledge that that's not what we should do. So I will say that I did look ahead. Like I've already done this for this game week. My plan was to actually just go through everything live so that like you could really experience the pain with me of like what I could have won. But I cheated this week mostly because I just wanted to like make sure I knew what I was doing, how I wanted to do it. Everything is done on Sorare data, and I'm going to go through exactly like how I did it so that you also can experience this pain for yourself if that's something that you're interested in. Honestly, like when I went through, it's not nearly as painful as I thought it was, as I thought it was going to be. And maybe that's because like I didn't miss out on like an Mbappe. This also is not like I was going to make this lineup, but I changed last minute. And had I just done this, then I would have won big. Like that's not really what the point of this is. It's more just to see for myself, like, do I have cards that could get me closer to the top, at least to win stars or tier ones, and we go from there. So Mike Baston, who is in the chat, thank you for coming in, said, I saw that it could have won a tier 3 rare and cap 270 with only the card I had to play, but I didn't. So yeah, so there were a lot of like weird, so this midweek was really weird. I didn't want to like review much of this midweek because there were so few games. And yeah, there were people who like won cards with like, or won rewards with like one card. Yeah. So did you see someone won a podium this game week and under 23 super rare with one card? So that like weird stuff like this happens in midweeks. And it's part of the reason why I don't always love to put a big emphasis on like in the concept builder where you're like, oh, if I got these 5 guys, here's where it would have finished, which is funny since it's exactly the point of this show. But the midweeks, they can just be really weird. Like I happen to have a lineup this midweek that I had 5 starters in All-Star Rare Pro, and I'm in line to win a tier 2 rare, which is great, but it's like really just because I had 5 guys from Atlas and they happened to play this game week. So I'm probably going to stick to the weekend game weeks if I keep doing this show, just because there's more going on and there are more options that you can look at. So like I said, I cheated on this a little bit because I went ahead and saw the cards that I could have won. I actually didn't go through like an entire process. It was pretty much just 2 lineups. I did a limited and then a rare pro. And I guess we can look at what it would have won had I just gone into rare. But not to like spoil it at first, but the limited lineup that would have like won me the most this game week is a lineup I literally never would have made. Like if you gave me 10,000 tries, I'm not making this lineup. And so that actually made me feel a little bit better. This is a total like results over process look back. And so I'm hoping that it actually doesn't like break my lineup building process because of things that I'm like, oh, well, if this happens and this happens, and they're just like too many ifs. And so I do think how I build lineups, and I know I haven't really like gone into that much, and I'm not really going to do it here at least because everyone's lineups are different. I just don't know how effective it is for a lot of people to hear about my own lineups, but maybe we'll get to that at some point. So anyway, let me just check the chat here because there was someone, Mike Baston is saying, but that does me topic of this, just not in the way. Yeah. So Yonase Sorare said, what's more painful is looking at your price graphs at bad buys and sells. Honestly, I could do like 10 hours on this and, the things that we could have done, but didn't. The reason why I like what this idea was, at least, is like, I have these cards, like theoretically, I actually could have done this. There are a lot of things like, oh, if I had made that trade or if I had just bought that card, and like, you don't always have the ETH or you don't have the cards for the trade, like things that happen. And so we're going to see like basically what happens. So I'm just going to pull up Sorare data because you can't do anything without Sorare data at this point. So Sean, before I get into that, so Sean, thank you for coming here and asking when the reward stream. So Sean asked me this, like why I don't do reward streams. And I told him that the reason I don't is because I don't win enough fun stuff. Like my lineups are okay. I feel like they can compete, but they're not like consistently winning. And I just don't think enough people want to watch me open my one tier 3 limited each week. Like that's not entertaining. And so like good or bad is not entertaining. And then I was like, wait a minute, maybe instead of opening rewards, I talk about rewards I could have won, which sounds kind of dumb now that I say it out loud, which is funny also because I've been talking about this concept with a few people. I'll say thank you to Black who I went to on this, Gator Guy, and Mike Zakarian. I went to the three of them, and I was just like, I have this idea, and what do you think I should do? And they were like, yeah, go for it, try it out. And then Sean said, have a guest on and have them open their reward. So yeah, like I'm not closing the door on this being like a show I do with someone else or other people at some point, or someone new each week. I will say that Sean mentioned to me that he talks to a few people. They're like, oh, if I had just done this instead of this, then I could have won. And we all do that. Like every single like decision. Like I was watching Quinny's deadline show today with Harry, and Harry was like going back and forth at the end, like between Jurrien Timber or Jesper Karlsson captain, going back and forth. And it's like, those are the sort of things that you can like think about after the game week. And you like, I'm not sure there was necessarily a wrong decision there. So like, those are just the things you can talk about. Bald Sherlock said, even if you did put in great lineups, if your gallery is worth it, guaranteed a great reward, or if you're annoyed, a reward swap. I'm not going to touch the reward swaps here. Andy and I talked about it on Sorare Andrews yesterday. I'm not sure there's anything more I can add to it. So I hope to be in a position one day where I win a great enough reward that I then get a terrible one and I can swap it out. I'll put it that way. Not that I'm like hoping for terrible rewards, but I can win those on my own. Anyway, so we go to Sorare data. The way I was doing this is just going to my results from the last weekend. And I guess I'll just quickly go through. I will say that I don't care about my my win percentage on Sorare data, which is, let's see here, 19.5%. So I end up putting like a bunch of lineups in just for like to get more XP, or if I have 4 players and I'm missing a goalie, like I'll put that lineup in. Like I'm perfectly fine seeing like a lot of lineups that are dead, just because like I prefer to just see more lineups. It's as simple as that. Sean is right that I do just need to buy more super rare defenders to not just immediately die. Shout out to the Korean Timber, although hopefully he's coming back soon if we ever get, or I guess we will have the K-League. But anyway, so I'm not going to go through all of my lineups from last week because it was all last week. And I actually was somewhat successful in limited. I took home a tier 1 in All-Star Limited and U23, and then snuck in a tier 3 on Cap 270. The lineups, this was the All-Star one, which is like a very random one. I think one of the weird things from last week, which actually like didn't even help me this week, is I think we all did this. We just like didn't really know where to put our lineups last weekend, which was like the real first capped competition one. Do we go for the threshold? Do you take like a good lineup and put it into All-Star? Like the regional competitions were kind of iffy. And so I don't think we have like a real clear answer for it yet. I do know that all of my rare lineups just completely bombed last weekend. And so I can't even speak on how that was. My All-Star Rare Pro is usually like the lineup that I consider my best, where I put my best cards in there. And it obviously just didn't do well last week. Hosseini's game was called off because of the earthquake in Turkey, and kind of ended up short on those. And then I do stuff like this, like Teton wasn't going to play, but I was like, oh, I have these super rares. Like I would rather see like a dead super rare lineup than to have these cards just get like the standard 75 XP. So I entered America Rare. Francisco Gonzalez, who I captained, tore his ACL last week during the game. So that was, a thing. And then Camilo Vargas committed a penalty and then saved it, which in a 2-2 game ended up not even really mattering. So the cap 220 or like the capped competitions were, I tried to get a little sneaky here playing Messi in capped and didn't work in 220 limited. And then I literally checked every single player in my gallery if they were starting last week except one. And I played Vinicius Souza, who was suspended. So as much as I try to like do my own research, I just like straight up missed that one, which included this Yari 100, which we'll get back to because it plays a key part in what I could have won for this game week. And then I'll just cap 240. I came up 12 points short of the 50 points needed. Franco Armani was a L10 of 69, which kind of like made it a little tougher to build around. And I did have goalies with lower L15s, but I kind of needed them in other spots. Like I didn't really prioritize cap 240, which is why I ended up coming up short. And then this cap 270 is where I won the other my other limited card. So anyway, the goal was to figure out like how good a lineup could have been. And before I jump into that, NH is saying that my roster value is 36 ETH and it was 50 ETH some months ago. And am I worried about that? And I'm not. And I realize that I'm probably in a very different position than a lot of other people. That obviously working for Sorare data, Sorare's success is pretty important to my own like well-being. And so the like prices are down, users are up, and I kind of continue to play this game like it's a game. I never looked at this as like an investment vehicle or a way to like make some quick bucks. Like it's generally a hobby for me, which I realize sounds kind of crazy when you have 36 ETH worth of stuff, but I just like the game. I like it a lot. And everything that I do in my gallery is, or almost everything I do is in order to make my cards better so that I can play the game better. And so I don't really check roster valuations at all. If anyone is like really interested in it in their own, just a reminder, you can use the manager stats tab. If you're really interested in mine, I keep mine public because I don't know, there's nothing here that's all that exciting or secretive to hide. And so, yeah, I mean, if anyone who's been on the platform as long as I have has at least one or two jumps, and now we're kind of continuously going down. And again, like, it's just not, it just doesn't, it's not something I think about. I'll put it that way. So anyway, if we go back to the results from last weekend, basically what I was doing was using this Your Players section. And then I was actually using the concept builder to quickly do the math for me. This, I like the, when you're dropping slower than I don't know if I'm actually dropping slower than the market, but I'll take that as growing. That's fine. But anyway, so there was the question here in chat that I admittedly get a lot, and it's actually good that there are a few people, or at least one other person from Sorare data here, because it's asking if this is actually a different question than I was expecting, but it was basically taking out old commons from the Your Players from the game week, which is funny because I'm using the Your Players like section here on the results for the purpose of this video. And because I know my gallery, I know which cards like that or names that I'll go through that I have as commons. And so I'm not necessarily going to count those. But like, we know that you guys want commons removed from this section, and like, we're working on it. We work on a lot of different things, and we're like very appreciative of everyone who uses all of our tools. And there are some things that everyone's like, oh, it's simple, just get rid of them, that like aren't actually that simple. And so just know that it's on the list. Like, we know it's important to you guys, so we're working on it. Anyway, So this Yari Versharon, I actually have a Yari rare and a limited. The limited, which was in, was it in this All-Star one? Oh no, the U23. No, is a jersey mint. So you can all get really jealous of that. 51 of 1,000. I don't think he even wears 51 anymore, actually. So maybe that's actually more valuable if anybody wants to. Not that I'm trading, just just trying to get profits. But anyway, so cat mode things make this a little more difficult because I'd have to go back and like look at L15s from last week, and frankly, I just don't really want to do that. So I look at All-Star, and if the like how my top limiteds would do if I put them all in limited All-Star, or All-Star limited. And if they were all like in a region, or if they were all under 23, like then I would say, okay, how would this do in whatever region it is, or in U23, and I'll just like go from there. As far as I went before I went live, was I put my best limiteds in All-Star Limited to see how well I would have finished. And then I did my top rares and or super rares and see if they would have finished better in All-Star Rare or All-Star Rare Pro. Because I don't think I had any that were like fully the same region. Like they weren't all challenger or they weren't all champion. We'll go through it right now, so we'll see. But if I did miss one, then that's the case. So using concepts, I basically just did this to do the math for me on the screen instead of just using a spreadsheet. One of the things I love about Sorare data is how much we try to make tools that allow you to not get stuck in spreadsheets all the time. And don't get me wrong, I love numbers, I love spreadsheets, but there are certain things that we can do that are just better, or at least look better. And so this is one of them, instead of just using a spreadsheet. So clicking in with Global All-Star and Limited, and we know that Yari scored 100. So we're going to put Yari into the lineup, and then we'll go back. Cruyff, let's see. Messi, I do have a limited Messi. So if I had played Yari with Messi, which like this is already something I probably wouldn't have done. It's more that U23 limited is kind of a priority lineup for me. I have a decent number of good U23 limited cards, and I like to play them together. And so I'll do that. Maybe next week I'll do a slideshow. We'll see how much Sean will have to help me with it, but we'll see. So anyway, so we'll see Yari later as well. And then now that we have what feels like 17 limited competitions, they're just like common competitions. They're just like more and more commons. I could choose to not play them, but not playing them is not as fun as playing them. But it does kind of clog up this my players section. Again, like we get it. So Guillermo Maripan is center back from Monaco, who I do have a limited card of. And I have played him with Messi before in Champion Europe. A while ago, I bought a Messi and a Neymar limited to play in Champion Europe limited. And I actually ended up playing, like, I don't think I've ever actually played them together in Champion Europe, or very rarely, because I ended up playing, like, I split them. I play Messi with Legends sometimes, or I was playing one of them in Specialist a lot when we still had those as like the over 60 guy. So I actually don't always play these cards together, but I just need one more outfield player. And I believe, Harold Preciado from Santos in Liga MX is the choice here based on his score from last week. I have no recollection of who they played. I didn't even watch the game, but he scored. I have him somewhere, and so that's that. And so pretty much right now we have are the 4 outfield players, sitting on 388 points without XP. I am going to add XP into this and a captain, and because that's going to really give us a better idea of where I would have finished in the competition. So the first non-common goalkeeper I had was Bart Verbruggen, who's been absolutely smashing it ever since he became the starter at Anderlecht. And so if we just put him in, this is essentially the highest scoring lineup I could have had last week. I just would have never done this. Like straight up never would have done it. I played Verbruggen and Yari together. So I'll take credit for that. But I played them in U23. And obviously the other guys in this lineup are not U23. 2 of them are champion Europe. 1 is in champion America. And so I looked at this and I was like, all right, I don't feel bad about like, I didn't miss this. This wasn't like a lineup construction where I was like, man, like how did I not see this? Like just as Metal Gear says, like nobody's making this lineup. And that actually like made me feel better because I was like, okay, I didn't miss anything. But I also have to sit here and be like, don't try to make lineups like this. Like this is just a dumb lineup. If I showed anybody this lineup before the game week, I'd be like, I'm thinking of running this in all-star limited. They'd be like, why would you do that? Like it just makes no sense. There's no correlation. Just a bunch of guys. It almost looks like, I mean, Messi obviously throw this off, but it just kind of looks like a lineup of scraps. Like, oh, here's my leftover guys. I'm just going to throw them in all-star. And instead, we're going to see where it ends up. So I'm going to steal the XP from here. So I have Verbruggen is at 10.5%, which is really nice because he, for some reason, doesn't have current season cards. I don't know what it was about Anderlecht that he didn't get them, but he didn't. I've got an 8% Yari, which again, Jerseyman, not for sale. Don't even try. And then I guess I got to find these other guys. Let's see. I don't think I even played Preciado now that I said that. So Messi is also at 8%. And let's see. Do I have an America? Oh, there he is. I did. All right. 6% Preciado. And because Yari scored 100, I'll captain him. Again, if I had this lineup and I'm like, not only am I going to run this lineup, I'm going to captain Yari Verscharen instead of Lionel Messi. I don't think I'm actually going to do it. So this lineup comes in at 498 points, which sounds pretty competitive. Anything near 500, like I should be close to a podium. And now that I actually run this, I think this is actually higher than what I initially thought. So anyway, the way that I figure out how or where this lineup ends up, I go to the Game Week Center and rankings. And again, what did we say? 498 points, which would have put me 498. I would have been fifth. Fifth in All-Star Limited with this lineup. And a captain, Yari Verscharen, over Lionel Messi. So this is where it should get painful, right? Because you're just like, all right, because we have the rewards data in for football, still waiting for Sorare to put it in for NBA. I can see exactly what I would have won. And this is where it gets to be not as fun because you can see kind of like what you missed out on. So All-Star Limited, fifth place was Victor Osimhen limited card, 151 of 1,000. Nice card. To be honest, I've never been like the biggest Osimhen fan. Like he was never a consideration for me for U23 or Champion Europe. I feel like all of the Sorare OGs have him. So, so like theoretically, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a true Sorare OG in terms of how long I've been on the platform. But anyway, I don't have an Oceanman, and I wouldn't really want one. But the last one sold for $369, which would have been a nice prize. I'm not going to lie. One off of Kevin De Bruyne, two off from Neymar, and finishing ahead of Van de Voort and two Trippiers and a Pedri and a Rodrigo. My God. All good rewards, ones that would have been really nice to have. And instead, all of these guys got them. So congratulations to them. I'm not even, or I guess we have their lineups here, which a little Benfica Ajax stack. See that makes sense. My lineup just didn't at all make sense. So we'll chalk this up to 300 and let's call it $50. There was a 350 there. So could have won $350 rare card there, or limited card, excuse me. Would have been nice. Would have been nice. So I'm going to go back to the concepts, and what we're going to do now is look at what I could have done with my rares. And I'm like half an hour in here, just to warn everyone, I've got like 15 minutes left, and then I got to go. And this is probably the more painful part anyway. So I probably don't want to harp on it too much. Chani, thank you for joining. So I'm going to go with just a rare lineup first, because I think it was Rare Pro where I ended up really being able to get a good lineup in and a good reward, but we'll see what happens. I can't remember what the rare situation was. So again, I have a Yari rare card, which was one. Yari's price dropped. Let me start that over. The Yari Basharan rare was like a card that when I got it, was one of those cards that just felt like everyone had one. And it was like when I got that card and when I got a Sambi Lakonga, I was like, all right, I'm like legit so rare player now. These are stupid things you think about all the time. So Yari has always been a bit of like a tease from a so rare perspective, because he's still super young, and there's always like it feels like there's always a new manager who's like puts him on set pieces, and all of us get really excited. And so I got this one back in March of 2021, and I just probably haven't even won that much with it. Like 6 rewards ever, 6 cards that I've been playing, and then I play them in like all-star rare. Like it seems like such an odd card to like throw in a threshold lineup. But anyway, so we've got Yari in for the first spot. Going to go back to my players, and then I just have to find other rares. I have a Dusan Tadic rare, which you saw in that Rare Pro lineup early. So I get to throw him in. And this is where you start to like think like, oh, this actually could get really bad in the way that like I missed out on stuff, because here we go. I actually I won a Sunset rare like a year ago. I sold it almost immediately, but I feel like he's like popping up lately. And you'll see a lot of like really good players here, and it's because most of them are commons or limiteds. Like I have an Enzo limited. I had 4 Chouameni commons at the end of the Global Cup. I know you're all very jealous of that, but when they finally, I think I had one in my draft, and then they were like, "Oh, you get the comparable commons." I got 3 more Chouamenis, and then then they stopped using those commons anyway. So I do have to scroll a little bit further in order to find the good rares, which either makes me feel better because I didn't miss out on a lot, or makes me feel worse because my cards aren't that good. Still working on that one. So I have a Luis Urruti, who also fits in here. Urruti did not start this match where he had a goal and an assist. Not only did he not start, the Opta coverage for the match was downgraded without any notification whatsoever before or after the game week. And so he only got scores for his decisives. There was no all around. The reason why I even have this card is because I won it once as a tier 1. Did I win it? Oh, maybe I won it in America. There it is. So he got hurt like either right after, I think it was right after I got, it might have been right before, whatever it was. He tore his ACL. I won him as a tier 1 and he tore his ACL like a week later. And I've been sitting on the card since. I mean, this was like game week 250-ish. And so I've been waiting to use this card. And the fact that it's like popping up here on like my optimal lineup is kind of funny. So anyway, so we still need a defender and we need a goalie. So again, these are all mostly commons. In fact, this is a lot of commons. And Kamavinga is always fun. Pinto is a okay. So Anderson Santamaria, who I have here, is a center back for Atlas. I have his super rare. So this is when I'll pull this up again for Rare Pro because I absolutely would have played Santamaria. I have Adon, an Adon rare. I actually have his limited as well. I got this Adon rare. It's not going to show this one. This is his sporting one. But I have an Atletico Madrid one that I bought from John Nellis. So thank you again, John. That card actually is one of 2 cards I have that are now on level 20. So I'm always excited to use that card because it's like a full 10% XP. And then Kevin McAllister from Home Alone is the last piece of our puzzle here. And again, not like a super high scoring lineup. And so there's not like a whole lot that will change. Should have paid attention to that, to the XPs of these beforehand. Tadic is at, that can't be right, 15%? 6% Tadic? Does that seem right? Yeah, okay. So we've got 6% Tadic. Guy scores so much, like it just feels like his XP is always higher because there's just so many points. All right, who we got left? Yari, Arudi, and McAllister. All right. Here's McAllister at 11.5%. Oh, current season bonus. That's right. Well, that's pretty nice. Not 115%, but 11.5. All right, so we've got Yari and Arudi to go. The Yari rare. Yari rare. Oh, I played him in capped, so he doesn't have it. 9.5%. Oh, that'll be fun to get him to the 10% mark. All right, and Arudi, where is he? Also in capped, 6.5. 6.5%, and I barely use this card. Train your cards. Although now we only need 3 of them, 3 lineups. All right, Captain Yari because he's at 100 and 400. Is that right? 444 in. All right, 444 in All-Star Rare. 444 would have gotten me 7th place. Wow. This is going to hurt. All-Star Rare, 7th place gets me Nick Olij, who's a goalie from Sparta, who is only a cool like $1,100. That would have been a nice card to have. It's funny. Winning goalies is always just kind of like a bummer because you're like, oh, it's a goalie. And then you always need goalies. Okay. So there's that one. And then I'm actually going to move over to Rare Pro to see what we would have had there. So again, we've got Yari and Tadic we know are in. And I had Santa Maria Super Rare that I knew popped up. But Bald Sherlock says, are you sure you want to keep making the series? I don't actually know that. We're going to see how much I want to do this next week. Okay, let's see here. I don't remember the order. So we've got basically under Tadic. It was the next one, a Rudy. Where is he here? Yeah, it is a Rudy. Okay. So basically what happens now is, do I go down to what my next highest player was or my next highest super rare? I didn't have a playing super rare goalie last week. So if this is going to have to be, I'm assuming it's Adon, because Adon was my highest scoring goalie. So if we put Adon in, and to be honest, I don't usually play one super rare lineups because I just don't think they're powerful enough. This is still giving me 444, which doesn't quite feel right. Let me see if this changes. 440. Oh, it does change. This is gonna hurt. Thankfully, I have to leave soon. 10%. Tadic was 6. Rudy was 6.5. Give me the power. 454. So 454 in All-Star Rare Pro. It's this low-scoring week. 454 leaves me 15th in All-Star Rare Pro. All-Star Rare Pro last week, 15th. Frankie de Jong. This one I knew about because I did this ahead of time. So Frankie's price was about 800 2 days ago, and then he auctioned earlier today for 625. That's a big drop. So I actually would have won a better reward in All-Star Rare instead of Rare Pro, which is kind of interesting, actually. But either way, I don't remember if, like, I could have made this lineup. Like, I played Tadic in All-Star Rare, in Rare Pro, and where is that lineup? Did I play Adon there? Like, 2 of these cards I played here. So it does feel like the process was right. I didn't play Santa Maria there because I played him in America Rare Pro with Camilo Vargas, who they play together. So, like, I've split goalie and defender before, and it feels like splitting them is always a mistake. Mark Layla's accusing me of being an OG. So I joined in November of 2020. I bought cards, like I jumped in like 3 months after that. But yeah, you can call me an OG. I get it. It just feels like I'm guys like Quinny and Nellis and Mark, you were here like way before me. So that I consider like that group like true OGs. But anyway, so I got to leave in like a few minutes, but frankly, I've gotten nothing out of this in terms of like actual lineup building. This lineup here, again, I wouldn't have played, like if I had just played like my next highest scoring super rare, which is Kohlert here, who I would have to play instead of a Rudy because he's a forward. Well, his card is a forward. He plays like a wing back now. So this would have scored 442 with, which is, where did that put us? 442 puts us 21st, let's call it. And 21st would have gotten us Ousmane Dembele. Oh, shout out to Your Name who won that one. So this is a lineup I probably wouldn't have made this one either. Like I have Camilo Vargas to play with Santa Maria. The only time I split it up is if I'm playing Santa Maria in like, I think I did it this game week, in like one of the super rare capped or something like that. And so Yari did have a good matchup. So did Tadic. I ended up playing Jonas Hoffman with Tadic. I don't even remember where I played Yari. Oh, I played him in capped because I think his L15 was pretty low. But this at least, like, I have the cards. Like I should have like the thought that like I do have cards where I can get up to this, up to these levels. But yeah, the teams themselves don't make sense. I'm not going to review the teams that were around where I would have finished if they made sense, because they probably did. But I'm going to probably do this again next week. The way that I entered contests this week was a little different, particularly because just my gallery is in a weird spot for somebody with whatever it was, 38 ETH gallery. Like I think I put too much emphasis on making sure I use my cards the most that I can, not always the most effectively, but I'm like, I don't want to have like unused super rares because I just don't have that many super rares. But like sometimes not using super rares is actually the optimal play for or at least my situation in a game week. So maybe I'll talk about that next week if I do this again and I can get over all of the amount of money that I could have had I played these ridiculous lineups. If you guys have any feedback on this time, obviously I'm talking about last weekend. And so there's a little bit of time that's taken. I thought about doing this Wednesday, basically like one day after the rewards come out. I'm not sure exactly when I'll do it or if I'll do this again. I've like been speaking now for 47 minutes, which might be the most I've ever spoken by myself in ever. So thank you to everybody in the chat who's been able to give me additional things to talk about. But yeah, seriously, any feedback you guys have, or if there's anyone that you think would benefit from coming on this show and having like the salt in their wounds of like just missing out or something like that. So, but yeah, just let me reach out to me. It's at Andrew M. Laird on Twitter, which I think there it is, written there on the screen. So yeah, hit me up. And I think I'll do this again. I think this is valuable. I'm not sure if it's valuable for me. Maybe it's just entertaining for you guys, and that should be enough. But I did want to kind of like show you what we have on Sorare data that will allow you, if you think that like Sorare data is only here to make like, to help you make better lineups or make better purchasing decisions, it is also here to make sure that you really appreciate sometimes how bad you are at this game and ways that you can hopefully get better. So thank you for joining.